Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the RDA Central West Business Breakfast. Great to have you with us, and I'm joining you live from Blayney, sitting down with Tony McPaul, the Manager of Special Projects for Regis Resources. Tony, welcome to breakfast.
Thanks, Sam. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, mate, great to have you here, and thanks for coming on board and being involved with the Business Breakfast. Tony, you're well known across the Central West. You have a long history in the mining industry, but for those that don't know, can you tell us a little bit about your connection to the Central West and the resources sector?
Yeah, well, I guess if I turn back the clock, Sam, back in 1981, I started in a mine called Woodlawn out behind Lake George, which is on the way to Canberra, copper lead zinc mine, and then I was lucky enough to spend 16 years there. And like a lot of us do in the mining industry, I then moved around. Went to Benambra in Victoria, I worked in a coal mine on the south coast, and I went up to Darwin, worked in the McArthur River mine, which is in the Gulf of Carpentaria. Crossed to Mount Isa for 5 years, and then back to Cadia here near Orange. And I don't think Cadia needs any introduction, but I was lucky enough to spend 16 years out at Cadia. Semi-retired to go back onto my farm back at Crookrell. I'll never leave Orange, by the way. Orange is my home. It's where my grandkids are, and we love Orange to death. But I do have a farm back near Crookrell. So I retired to go back and spend time there, and Regis asked me would I come and join them. And 4.5 years ago, I joined the team out here at McPhillamys, or Regis McPhillamys, to try and get the approval for this gold mine out near Kings Plains.
So you've got a fantastic experience in the resources sector, and you've brought that expertise to the Central West. Firstly, how has the resources sector changed over that kind of 35 years you've been in the industry?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Sam, actually. And I look back on the way the resources sector used to do things like their environmental management, and the way we do it today is quite different. And I'm happy to say that we do that much, much better than what we used to do. Safety, when I joined the industry, I'd love to be able to say that safety was a priority, but it really wasn't. It was left more up to the individual. So certainly the way we approach both the environment and safety is quite different, and has improved, tenfold or even more over the 40 years that I've been involved in the industry. Technology. Certainly technology plays a much greater part in mining now than what it did when I joined. And I think it's fair to say the people that work in mining are different. When I joined and you looked at, say, miners, they were this big, rough, tough miner, where these days it's not that image at all. They're just normal people. We've got a very diverse workforce. We've got lots of females in the workforce, which is a great thing, which certainly wasn't the case 40 years ago. We've evolved.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you said about technology and the reliance on those high-level skills in the industry is absolutely essential. Now, the McPhillamys Gold Project has been in the pipeline for a number of years, but can you tell our viewers that have tuned in this morning or are listening to the podcast, I guess, where the project's up to, and maybe a little bit of the history of the project?
Yeah, so, the history is that Alkane Newmont had a joint venture, and they had the exploration ground that McPhillamy sits on. They'd identified that there was a resource out there. Regis purchased that exploration area from Alkane Newmont back in 2012. They did a drill out of the deposit, and they've proved up just over 2 million ounces of gold. So we know just outside of Kings Plains that we've got 2 million ounces of gold in the ground. The 4.5 years that I've been involved with the project, we've done a lot of work on both the approval and the design for what the site might look like. We know that if we can get the approval, or if the project is approved, that we can build an open pit there. It'll be an open pit, similar size for the viewers that have been out to Cadia. It's about 800 metres by about 1 kilometre across. It's about 460 metres deep, which is about the size of the Cadia Hill open pit. We'll have a tailings dam, we'll have a processing plant on site, and we'll have a water pipeline. The water pipeline will be 90 kilometres from Lithgow, which will mean that we can bring all of the water we need for the project into the area. So we don't need to compete for local farmers with local farmers for water. We still have to have licenses for any groundwater take and any surface water take that we have, but they're minimal because we bring all this water in. The approvals process, I'd like to say that's easy in New South Wales, but it's not. We know the process is very strict, very stringent, and very, very slow. Where we're at with that process right now, we've submitted our EIS and all of our studies that go with that. We had the community and the, not just local farmers, but anybody could make comment on those environmental studies. They've done that. We've responded to those submissions. We've put in what's called an amendment report, and now the DPIE, Department of Primary Industries Planning, is doing its project report. Once they've finalised that project report, they hand that to the Independent Planning Commission, and the Independent Planning Commission will become the determining authority. So, in short, they're the ones that will either tell us, yes, you've got approval for your project, or no, your project gets knocked back.
Well, look, it's an exciting project, and I guess they've got to follow all of those stringent processes, I guess, to make sure when it is, if and when it is approved, it meets all the expectations of the government and the community. Now, can you tell our listeners a little bit and our viewers a little bit about the different type of skills, I guess, that you'll require for this project when it gets up and going? And I guess, can you give us any insights into the size of a potential construction workforce and operational workforce that the project would require?
Yeah, a lot in that, Sam, but basically...
Didn't say it was going to be easy this morning, Tony.
Yeah. So we'll have about 700 people that we'll need during construction. 150 of those will be used along the pipeline, and the other 550 will be used directly out on the McPhillamy site itself. So that's a lot of people in any language. Once we've built the project, the numbers are average 260 per annum. So we need 260 people, average over a bit over 10-year mine life for the project. In terms of the skills, we'll need everything from highly skilled engineers, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, mining engineers, civil engineers, to people with absolutely no skills that we will train up to do things like drive the mining equipment. So it'll be a very diverse range of skills, again, very similar to what other mines in the area have got. Doesn't mean that we can't take people with different skills and retrain them to give them a more diverse range of skills, because that's certainly what we would like to do. Will attracting and retaining that workforce be a challenge? Yes, it will, actually. And I think anybody in the Central West will know that right now that there is a skills shortage again, something that I don't think we probably foresaw with the onset of COVID, but certainly something that we're going to have to deal with. We would dearly love to work with some of the local training providers to tap into workforces that aren't currently available. So by that I mean disadvantaged, unemployed, whatever we can do to get more of those people into a situation where they can be part of the labour force.
Exactly right, and it also gives them an opportunity, as you said, to be trained up through that process, and it will be a great opportunity for them to have a new opportunity through this project, but then transition to other work going forward after that. Now, construction phase, as you said, it's a big element of the project, and it will require a big workforce. For those that aren't in the resources sector, what kind of skills and businesses do you need through construction, and how do businesses that might be thinking, oh yeah, I might have those skills, how do they engage?
Yeah, look, simplistically, when I think about construction, I start from the start. So the first thing you've got to have is you've got to have accommodation for people to stay in. I mean, obviously, if you can tap into local workforce that already lives here, then that's an advantage. But for construction, it's a reasonably specialist area, and there's no doubt we will have to bring people in to help us with that. So we'll tap in locally where we can, but we'll have to bring people in from outside. So accommodation is the first thing. Once you've got the accommodation, then you need to transport people to and from the site. So there may be opportunities there for people with, buses and that sort of thing. Once you get the people to site, as you said, you need certain skills. So, we'll have fabricators, so people that actually build things, and then we'll have people that put those things together. We'll need electricians to wire all the stuff. We'll need specialist instrumentation technicians to wire up the control systems. We'll need machinery operators again for the civil equipment and then the mining equipment that we use to help build and start mining at McPhillamy. So there'll be a huge range of skills. There'll be probably bricklayers. Some of the structures that we'll put up will be brick. There'll be tin sheds. We'll need almost every skill you can think of. We will use,
which is fantastic, I guess, for the regional economy. Can you give us any insights into what it might mean in economic sense in terms of wages or construction, or this type of investment will mean for the Central West economy?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, that part of it is huge, and just the capital cost of the project is up around 400 million to build, and that doesn't include the purchase of the mobile equipment. So, immediately there's $400 million that will be spent on construction and building of McPhillamys. Now, yeah, some of that is the steel work and the structures that we need, but wherever we can, and we use local suppliers for that, that means that money will be injected into the local area. Once we're up and operational, then obviously it costs hundreds of millions of dollars per annum to run a site like this. For instance, the wages bill on an annual basis will be somewhere between $60 and $70 million. So that's all money that'll come back into the local area. So yeah, huge economic boost.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that's, circulating in the local economy, and construction has a huge economic multiplier, which is fantastic for the region if and when the project gets up and going. Now we're going to change pace, change tack, and hit Tony with the Fast Five. It's where we get to learn a little bit more about our special guest. Tony, you've had a long and interesting career in the resources sector, but what's the career you thought you were going to have as a 17-year-old?
I was going to be an electrician, believe it or not. Okay. All I wanted to do when I was 17 was be an electrician. Well,
I wanted to be a sports journalist, so I don't know how I ended up here, but it's funny how the world turns. Hidden talent or hobby?
I didn't become an electrician, by the way. I ended up being a motor mechanic, so not many people know that about me, but I'm pretty handy with a spanner, and I can fix most things. But these days I just like to spend time outdoors. Yeah,
nice. And how's the farm going? How's the Crookwell property going now compared to, say, 18 months, 2 years ago?
Yeah, very, very different. And I mean, anybody else that's got land would know that we went through years of drought. It was very tough. We've had good rain, we've got grass, stock prices, if you've got sheep or cattle, stock prices are fantastic. So yeah, the farm's good. It's hard work, but it's good fun.
Yeah, absolutely. 3 dream dinner guests that you would love to have over for a special night, and what do you reckon you'd serve on the menu?
It's actually interesting, when I thought about that question and I did get a sneak peek at that, I thought, who in the world would you invite to dinner if you had the opportunity? And guess what? For me, it's pretty simple. It'd be my grandchildren. I just love my grandchildren to death, and I would serve them either roast lamb or chops, because that's what they really like.
Yeah, it's a bit early, but I'm getting hungry already. Best local event in the Central West?
The one that interests me the most is the National Field Days. I mean, that's just a great event for all involved.
Yeah, well, I think it's October every year. We might even chuck the link up to the field days there. I know Jane West does a mountain of work out there, and it's a fantastic event for the region. Hidden gem of the Central West. So this can be a person, a place, a location, and when you've got visitors coming into our region, it's somewhere, might even be off the beaten track a little bit, that you like to showcase.
Yeah, obviously the Central West's got a lot to offer, but you know what? The place that I take people when they come to the Central West is the Canobolas Hotel. So sorry to everybody else out there, but the Canobolas Hotel, I've done numerous interviews in there, and at the end of the interview we'll go out and we'll have a steak in their restaurant, and I've not had anybody that's been to the Canobolas and had a meal there that didn't enjoy it, and they all rave about it later on. So to me, it's the place that I go.
Yeah, look, I think that's one of the real benefits for Orange and the Central West is you've got such a fantastic array of food offerings, pub offerings. So good plug for the Canobolas there. Now getting back on to business, Tony, we spoke about the open cut mine, and that's the way that the project's going to go. For those that aren't in the resources game, why did you choose to go with an open cut mine, and what's the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, so different ore bodies require different mining methods, and the ore body here at McPhillamys almost outcrops. So what that means is basically from when we start to move dirt, we're in the top of the ore body. which means it's very conversive to what open cut mining methods. Unlike underground mining, normally an underground mine, your ore body might be deeper and a different shape. So this ore body is very well suited to open cut mining. Open cut mining is certainly more economic, so it's cheaper than underground mining. So you get your ore body, you look at the grade of the ore body, you look at the shape of the ore body, and then you work out, okay, what's the best way to mine this and what's the most economic way to mine it? And it turned out being open cut.
Another big issue that I believe the project has been navigating is access to water. And you spoke briefly at the top of the interview about a pipeline. Can you tell our listeners about that pipeline as a part of this project and what it might mean for the site at the end of the mine life?
Yeah, Sam, this is a really, in my view, a really exciting and beneficial part of the whole project. And when Regis originally asked me would I join the project, this part of it really did excite me because I was general manager at Cadia when we went through years of drought and almost ran out of water out there. And always knew that if we were going to develop another big project in this area, that it was going to take some innovative thinking. So what are we looking to do? We're looking to build a pipeline from down near Lithgow, from Centennial's mining and coal washery operations down there, and past the Mount Piper Power Station, which is owned by Energy Australia. We're looking to transport 13 megalitres a day, basically, on average, over the life of our project through that 90-kilometre pipeline. It's a huge job just to, I smile, to get the easement to build that pipeline, and then the engineering feat, to put a pipeline like that in the ground with water to service our operations is just a great thing. But then once we're finished, that pipeline won't go, and it can transport water back here into the Central West for a very, very long time.
Yeah, which is exciting, I guess, as a flow-on benefit of this project, potential for the site for high-value ag or new industries or whatever it might be, which I think is really exciting. Now, one of the other things that I do in my research, I know Regis has been contributing and supporting a lot of important community organisations in Blayney and surrounds. Can you give us some examples, and how do interested organisations that want to learn more about the project or the support that might be out there engage with you guys?
Yep. So I guess there's a couple of things. One, we're out communicating with as many people in the community as we can. So, our community and government relations people, Louise Hobby, Chris Roach, Rosie Pritchard at the moment, contact them or through our email address, or just call into our office. And we're more than happy to come out and brief people, brief community groups on where the project's up to and what we're doing. In particular, if people are after sponsorship and money, and we know that generally there are lots of organisations in the community that sometimes struggle to get funding. Again, contact any of the people that I mentioned earlier, send us an email, whatever, and if we think it's a really good cause and we've got money available, then we generally try to support things in the local community. So, for instance, we've put some money into the Blayney High School, and they're building up a hothouse and growing trees and that sort of stuff for us, and we find that's a really, really good cause. St Paul's church at Carcoar, we put some money into that because we knew that the community wanted to keep that church, and thankfully they raised those funds, and they've been able to do that. Blayney Rotary, the Show Society. We don't have unlimited amounts of money because we don't have an operation, but we spread our money around and try and help as many people as we can.
Yeah, we'll chuck the link up to the Regis Resources site after this morning's chat for anyone that wants to learn a little bit more. Now, Tony, we're coming to the end of this morning's chat. Looking into the crystal ball, what's your forecast, I guess, for the region and for the project over the next 12 to 18 months?
For the region, that's an interesting question, depending on COVID, I guess. But the good thing about the Central West is that we've seen COVID and we've seen how resilient the Central West can be. So certainly, I think the Central West will continue to grow. There's some exciting projects that are in the pipeline and will be developed over the next 12 to 18 months. Ours is one of those. I do see a bit of a stretch on the accommodation and on the labour force, and that's something we're definitely going to have to manage very well. But you know what, we've done it before in the Central West, and I'm sure we'll do it again. For Regis, I would like to think that we'll get a determination. I'd obviously like to think that that determination goes in our favour and we get an approval, and we start construction probably around the end of this year, and then in 18 months from now we do our first gold pour. That would be a huge milestone.
Yeah, it sure would. It sure would. But I share your optimism for the region into the future, that same period. And if you do think about Wyangla Dam, wall raising, you know, the Great Western Highway upgrades, this project, and then I guess the stronger agricultural sector as a pillar of our economy, I think it all bodes well for the Central West. Looking into the crystal ball. But Tony, that's where we finish up this morning's chat. Thank you so much for your time, and it's great for our viewers and listeners to learn a little bit more about you and the project. As I said, easiest way for people to engage with you and the project, is that through the website or the email that we talked about earlier?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean in this day and age, we find that a lot of people prefer to use email or that website. But as I said, our office is right in the main street of Blayney, and we have lots of people walk in, and we welcome each and every one of them, whether they're supporters of the project or whether they want to just learn more about it, or whether they oppose it. We'll still talk to them.
Yeah, well, look, thanks again for your time. Great to be here live this morning from Blayney. But for everybody else, have a great day, a good weekend. Tune in same time next week, and have a great weekend.